Welcome back, everyone, to Fireside Football. I'm Kendall Capps.
And I'm Andrew Williams.
Well, Andrew, it's week 5 of the NFL. Most of the divisional games at the beginning of the season are over now. And we got some interconference matchups, some matchups we don't typically see all the time.
Yeah, it's kind of nice to get to see teams like the Buccaneers and the Bengals, or some interconference matchups, divisional matchups that we don't see, maybe games that aren't so easy to pick or steeped in
Tough
history.
to break down. Yeah, there's not a lot to really look at when you look at their histories with playing each other and so forth. I had to start us off with Tampa Bay going on the road, coming off a bye, going on the road to Cincinnati. What do you think might happen?
I like the Bengals here. I like their running game. Their passing game has done a lot more this year. I think Tampa Bay looks good. They're coming off a bye and they look much improved, but I don't know that they really have the defense and wherewithal to hang with what Cincinnati's been doing.
It's funny you use the word wherewithal. That's actually one of the words that I was thinking about using. I agree that I don't know if they have that some je ne sais quoi, so to speak, to be able to win big games, especially on the road. I know they're coming off a bye, and their pass defense has been pretty solid this year. I think it's ranked 5th in the NFL, which has surprised a lot of people. But their run defense has been really suspect, and I think Cincinnati needs to get back to the basics, get back to what won to help them win games last year, which was defense and running the ball. I see a heavy dose of Cedric Benson this week. I think he has a big week. He goes off, and Cincinnati takes care of business.
I like the Bengals too. They've played well at home, and I think the Buccaneers are in for a loss here. I think the Bengals.
Yeah, I think Tampa Bay comes back down to earth a little bit.
Now moving down the road a little ways to Indianapolis, you've got the Colts hosting the last remaining undefeated team in the NFL, the Kansas City Chiefs. I'm sure a lot of you picked that one.
Yes. Yeah.
Where do you see this going?
You know, most people typically you wouldn't give Casey a shot, but now they're the 3-0 team. They're playing really well. They're coming off the bye. Indianapolis, they're going back home where they've only had one home game so far this season, and their defense has been suspect. Teams have run the ball all over them, have passed the ball all over them. It's clearly the weakness of the team. They lose Sanders, then they lose their backup to Sanders, Melvin Bullet for the year. It leaves a big gaping hole in that secondary. It's going to be difficult. I do think KC will be able to put up a great fight. They should try to run the ball. They should be able to run the ball really well. But I just don't see Indy falling to 2-3.
I'm going to surprise them. I'm going to take the Chiefs in my upset special this week. Like you said, Melvin Bullet done for the season. Bob Sanders already done. Austin Collie not going to play this week. He's probably 2nd or 3rd in the league in receiving right now. And like you said, the Colts just haven't looked strung together. Now, would I be surprised if the Colts looked angry and they came out and win this game by 30? Not necessarily, but I like the Chiefs rookies. I like their coaching staff. I like how they've turned it around, and they've had 2 weeks to prepare for the Colts. The Colts coming off that loss at Jacksonville, maybe they overlooked the Chiefs, even though they are 3-0. I'm going to take Kansas City in the upset special.
If ever a team would overlook an undefeated team, it probably would be this situation.
The Colts
overlooking the Chiefs. But the last time the Colts fell to 2-3 was 2001. It was quite a while ago. They finished 6-10 that year. This is a pretty solid squad. I still think Indianapolis is a playoff team. They have so much talent. Once they start playing a little bit better, a little bit more together, I expect them to go on a roll, and it might start this weekend. Well, now we're going to go over to Green Bay. Green Bay goes down to Washington. Should be a pretty good matchup. You don't see these two teams playing each other too often. What do you think, Mike?
I like Washington here. Green Bay has yet to impress me as much as I think they should have. Last week they won. They came out strong, but they didn't finish the game. They let the Lions back in it. This week they go to Washington, a team that just had a big win last week, maybe a lucky win in some people's eyes, but a big win nonetheless. They get to go home. They get Green Bay, who's struggling with the running game, and I looked for Washington to maybe open it up a little bit, give Ryan Terrain the ball a little bit more now. And I think McNabb has a big game here. I think they can come out and beat the Packers.
You know, I mean, Ryan Terrain, I think, might even be a step up from Portis, who's out 4 to 6 weeks now. Portis has been looking a little bit older the last couple of years, and Ryan Terrain has some young, fresh legs. He's done a pretty good job so far this season. I wouldn't be surprised to see him keep them in the game. But Washington's pass defense is second to last in the NFL. They've looked dreaded, and now they're going to go against Green Bay with all of those weapons, despite the fact that Green Bay's on the road. And you're right, they've had problems putting teams away. They should have put Chicago away when they had the chance. They should have put away Detroit, and they gave Detroit a chance last week. And part of that, I mean, let's face it, without Ryan Grant, they don't have much of a running game. And when you get up 17, you'd like to be able to run the ball.
Absolutely.
And they're not able to do that now. Brandon Jackson isn't quite what they were hoping he was going to be coming in. So they've been using John Kuhn as their starting running back at times, which he's basically a fullback that they've transitioned over to running back because Jackson hasn't done very much. So I think they struggle to put teams away, and I think in this game they'll do the same thing. They'll struggle to put them away, but I still think Green Bay puts them away and gets the win.
All right, how about Denver going into Baltimore to face the Ravens, fresh off their big win over the Steelers? Denver coming in at 2-2. Last year, this game was a big game for Baltimore to prove they could compete in the AFC. What do you say?
Yeah, no, this game almost, it was a springboard for Baltimore last year. Denver was 6-0. They were looking great. They come off some big wins, and they're coming in flying high. And they just got trounced by Baltimore last year, 30-7. Baltimore went on to reach go deep into the playoffs. They looked pretty solid the rest of the year. Now with the additions, their offense is finally starting to click, which the first couple of weeks there were questions whether or not they were going to groove. I like Baltimore in this one. I have a hard time picking against them.
I'm also going to take Baltimore. I think their defense is really good at shutting down Denver's short passing game. I think they're going to make Kyle Orton try and beat them over the top. I don't know if that happens. I like Baltimore.
Yeah,
as well.
even though the one intriguing part of this game, when you look at it, you have Denver with the best pass offense, yardage-wise, in the NFL, against Baltimore's best pass defense in the NFL, only giving up 119 yards a game. So it's contrasting styles there.
Something has to give.
Yeah, something has to give, and something tells me it might be that Denver
The Denver
offense.
pass. I'm going to go with you on that.
Yeah.
Take us over to Houston for the Giants. Going in to play Houston, the Texans getting linebacker Brian Cushing back this week. Is that a big enough step in their defense to handle this Giants offense?
I've been going back and forth in this game all week. I could see it going both ways. The Giants, I had them last week beating Chicago. I had a feeling they were going to come out and play really well. It was an emotional game. The coach is practically coaching for his job. On the other side, Houston, they're up and down. That defense is so porous, and even with Cushing coming back, how much are they really going to be able to defend against the pass? I'm still almost on the fence. Where are you on this one?
I like the Giants. I don't know. Cushing, I'm waiting to see. I don't know if this is a Sean Merriman type case where if he's suspected of steroids and then when he comes back free and clear, he's not quite the same player we were used to seeing before. And the Giants, I think, are due for a win. I like Houston, but I think the Giants pull it all together. They had a good springboard last week against the Bears and came out with a full team effort and really just battered the quarterback. And I think if they can get that kind of pressure on Schaub with Andre Johnson hurting, may play, may not, get some good presence against Arian Foster, don't let him go off, and I think the Giants can pull this out.
Yeah, I think I'm leaning the same way. I like the Giants on the road. It should be a pretty good ball game, but again, like you said, the pressure that front four of the Giants has been applying the last couple of weeks, if they do get that pressure on Schaub. I mean, Schaub had a decent game last week at Oakland. He threw for a couple touchdowns, but until late in that game, he had only thrown for 130 yards. Andre Johnson was out. He's questionable. He's going to be a game-time decision again this week. Owen Daniels still isn't the same guy as we saw in previous years, so that offense is not clicking the way you would normally expect it to. So I think the Giants, with that running game, Ahmad Bradshaw, week by week, is really starting to become a solid starting running back. I think the Giants go on the road and get this one. So that's going to take us over to the Monday night game. Brett Favre going back to the Meadowlands, or whatever they want to call it nowadays.
Returning to his brief stint as the Jets to play against them with Randy Moss in tow this time.
Yes.
How much of a difference does that make in their first week with only a couple practices together?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a little difficult. He's going back to his number 84, but yeah, he's only going to have a few days to practice to learn that offense in Minnesota, which is vastly different from what they run over in New England. Minnesota likes to run the ball a hell of a lot more than they do down in New England. So it's contrasting styles. I'm curious to see how well he fits in this quickly, but it certainly adds another dimension to that offense that, let's face it, Minnesota has needed since Sidney Rice is gone.
Well, yeah, I think it makes a big difference. I think it really, you can't stick 8 in the box against AP when you've got Randy Moss to one side, because whether or not he knows the offense, telling him to go long and throwing it there still seems like a pretty viable option no matter how many days of practice.
That's about all he did his first few years in Minnesota. He just went long and Culpepper just chucked
So
it.
my question is just if Brett Favre can get the ball to him, but the Jets have looked really good. Darrelle Revis may be coming back this week. You've got Calvin Pace coming back this week. Santonio Holmes coming back this week. I'm going to take the Jets here. I think the Vikings are going to put it together, make the playoffs, but I don't think it starts this week. I think the Jets take care of business.
I think it almost has to start this week for Minnesota. After this, they have Dallas, Green Bay, and New England. That's a tough upcoming schedule, and they can't afford to fall to 2-5, 2-4, 1-5. I mean, they need to start winning some games. They're coming off their bye. They've had some time to rest, be able to look at what the Jets are doing. And I know the Jets are playing really well right now, arguably better than any team in the NFL. Typically, they play down to Buffalo. They didn't let that happen this year. They went out and they trounced Buffalo this year. They look really good. But I think Moss is going to make a big difference in this game. He's not necessarily going to have a big game stats-wise, but I think he's going to have a big presence on the field and allow Percy Harvin and some of the other receivers to actually have space to catch balls underneath, which until now they haven't had
And
that space.
Shenko
And some of the other guys.
Greg Camarillo. Other people may find some holes with Moss.
With Moss, they're spreading the field now, and I think it's going to make a difference. And also, like you said, when you stretch that field and you don't have 8 in the box, AP, he might be the first back to really go off against this Jets defense.
That's very
But
true.
it should be a great game. Well, that's going to do it for Week 5 of Fireside Football. And for all things sports, you can log on to AmericanSportsDaily.blogspot.com. And we hope to see you again here next week.